And our fourth and final main topic today comes to us from Omar94, who writes, I like reading up a lot on film and notice how in classic Hollywood, each big studio, like Warner Brothers, RKO Pictures, Paramount, etc., made movies on their own by doing both production and distribution. Now, there are so many companies involved on just one movie alone. I'm curious to know how movies get made now, as the big studios don't do it alone anymore. All right, thanks a lot for that question, Omar. And listen, the question you're asking could go off in 500 different directions, and we could be talking about 1,000 different things. But, basically talking about, and something we get asked quite a bit, Rob, and people send in questions is about, wait, what's going on? Why the distributor? It usually really comes up when you're talking about the Hulk, right? Because people go, why doesn't Marvel just make a Hulk movie? Because Universal's got the rights. But I thought Marvel has the rights. Marvel does have the rights to make the movie. Universal has the rights to distribute the movie. What's the difference? Why are there differences? All that kind of stuff. So that's a question that comes up quite a bit, and we have people asking us about all the time. Let me put it in a basic term, and then we'll throw it over to Rob, who's much more sage about all this. We'll let him have the final word on this. Basically speaking, there are two main parts about getting a movie made and into theaters, and that's the making of the movie and then actually getting it in front of eyeballs. And they're two different things. Traditionally speaking, a production company will make their movie. They have the rights to a book, or they write their own script, or they have the rights to whatever, and they make their movie, and there you go, you have it made. Now, pardon me, in the case of the big major studios, like a Disney, like a Warner Brothers, these are studios that have production arms and they have their own distribution networks. So they will quite often take care of that on their own. However, there are many, many, many production studios that do not have their own distribution arms, and therefore they need to get distribution. That is why we see film festivals like Sundance or many other film festivals where basically filmmakers and companies bring their movies hoping that a distributor will want to buy the rights to be the distributors for their movies and distribute their film. The distribution of a film is a totally different thing there. That's about having the pre-established networking, the right relationships, the business connections with all the various places, the expertise in knowing where and when to put a film, and maybe most importantly, being the one to put up the money for the marketing of that film. And you make the decisions about the marketing and all that kind of stuff. And let's face it, a lot of filmmakers simply do not have the cheddar to market a movie. And they don't have the connections and the wherewithal to get their movie into. They don't have the pre-existing distribution deals and outlet agreements and all that kind of stuff that a distributor will have. As far as a lot of companies working together now, it's not uncommon in Hollywood history. This goes back a long way. There's always been, when there's been a movie that's been particularly large and huge, that studios will go in on it together. They will mitigate their own financial risk by bringing in a partner, sometimes two, sometimes three, maybe even more, so that they limit their own financial exposure and spread out the risk a little bit. And then if the movie works, then everybody wins and all that kind of stuff. So that's not really unique and that's not really new. But the whole thing about the distributor and production studio relationship, that's kind of the basic way it breaks down. Rob, you know more about this than I do. You've had to work on getting more stuff distributed than I've had to work with distributors, get my stuff distributed, but you've done a lot more and on a bigger level than me. How would you define to somebody the fundamental difference between, what a production company does and what a distributor does, and why a distributor is needed?
Well, first of all, movies are expensive to make. And a lot of people are under the impression that the studios just are sitting on these mountains of cash that they can use to make movies. That is not true. Making movies means you need liquid cash because you have to pay everybody every week. So when you're making a film, say you're making a Jurassic World, or a Star Wars movie or a James Bond movie, and you're going to spend $200 or $300 million to make one of those films. The studios don't have $200 or $300 million in liquid cash lying around. So they're borrowing this money from banks because the studios
or other financiers
right, they're borrowing from, so that's why they need to get also other financiers to come in to help finance these movies because they have different financing sources. And if you're a studio, how do you finance, say, 5 $200 million movies a year? That's $1 billion in liquid cash. No one has that kind of thing, amount of money lying around, especially in the entertainment business. Other businesses like Apple might or something. But so money is churning. It's like a whirlpool. It's constantly, you've got money coming in, you've got money coming out. That's just for production. And everyone has to get paid at the end of the week. So you can't do it on credit. You actually have to have money in an account to pay people. So that's what's going on with production. Distribution, say A24, my beloved A24, that put out The Lighthouse. A24 is looking around now. They have also financed films. They're starting to finance movies themselves, but it's far smaller. What they do is they'll go to a festival, like you said, John, and they're looking for other movies that other people have financed, and they will pick them up for distribution. And in the case of A24, they'll make a deal. They'll be like, okay, it's a percentage deal. We're going to spend the money to market. And as we know, marketing a movie can also be, on an independent movie, good marketing could exceed the budget.
Even on big Hollywood films, that has happened.
Absolutely. It's hard to market a movie because now movie marketing is global. So there's a lot of money that's being spent there as well. Now, that has nothing to do with production. So if you're an independent filmmaker trying to finance a film, you might have 6 or 7 different finance companies coming in to finance that movie for you. And then you owe them. They expect, everybody's got a deal that you've made, a financing deal. There's a thing called first money in. So your first investor who's giving you money might be first money out. So before you get paid, before you make any profit, your investors need to get paid back. So it's important as an independent filmmaker that you find a distributor that's going to do well for you. And companies like A24, they've done a pretty great job of picking up really interesting independent films that somebody else financed, that then they pick up, they decide on the marketing campaign, and they figure out ways to make the movie come out and be, like you said, put in front of eyeballs. But it's a whole different thing. Now, A24 has gotten into financing their own movies, but they started out as a distribution company. And so they're different from a studio. I mean, they might become a studio, but it's a very interesting, and you can see how it's then really difficult to make big profits when you have, say, 5 different entities that have first produced the film, and then you have your distributor taking their cheddar because they expect to make money as well.
Yep.
So if you have an independent movie, say you've made a movie that costs $5 million, right? And it goes to Sundance, like you said. A distributor like A24 sees it. There might be other distributors, they'll say, we'll give you $8 million to buy your movie. So you sell that movie for $8 million. It cost you $5 million. Then you pay your distributors back, and your profit after the 30% they take, I don't know what the numbers are, might only be $2 million. And then that goes into the director might have a percentage, the actors might have a percentage. So that's all they make. Now, you might have a deal with the distributor that you get some money from that, but you'll never see it. So on an independent movie, you might only make $2 or $3 million, and that's if you're lucky. That's if it's a great independent movie.
Yeah, a lot of independent movies don't make any money.
They don't make any money.
Lose money.
But if you make a $5 million movie, you sell it for $8 million, that's a win.
Yeah,
that's a win for everybody involved. So it's a crazy business. But on big studio movies, they might, if you're making $200 million movies a year, that's why you have to get Chinese money, like say from Alibaba, or you go to Dubai, or you get other monies from all over the world to try and get the movie made, even big studios, because they're not sitting on $1 billion of liquid cash.
All right, guys. The question is, does that clear it up for you? Do you still have questions about the whole thing? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know what you would add to that as well.
I mean, John, we could talk about this for hours.
Oh, no, we could talk about this for days. I mean, the intricacies of it is so... I still remember, Rob, when I did my film, when I did the anniversary, and I remember... It was huge to me because I had the company that had the digital distribution rights to Boondock Saints.
Right, okay.
And they approached me, and I still remember sitting in with that, and I was so excited at first. It's like this serious Hollywood distributor of smaller films, like they're looking at my film, blah, and then so discouraged about really financially what that would mean and like how big of a thing expense would be for them, which ultimately mean I wasn't going to see a dime.
Yep.
Even getting them to distribute. It was so like realizing how complicated that world really is.
Yeah.
It's disheartening sometimes.
I hate to say it, but independent film distributors, as much as I like them, they're not interested in paying you any money.
No. I mean, and hey, there are success stories.
Yeah.
There are. But that's kind of why part of the thing I love about YouTube is that we don't need a distributor for the we don't need a network or a distributor to do the John Campea Show.
And you've got worldwide distribution instantaneously.
Instantaneous worldwide audience, ladies and gentlemen.